Welcome to the Gorgeous Gray podcast. I am Nicole Scott, your host, registered holistic nutritionist, rest mindset coach, author of the Gorgeous Gray movement, and the co-creator of the Menopause Reset program. In this podcast, we have real conversations about aging as a woman and all the pressure and uncertainty we feel as we head into menopause and beyond. Let's face it, aging is not an easy conversation to have. But I say it's time to talk about the messy middle and offer hope when we feel like giving up on ourselves. Let's talk about our fears around gray hair, our muffin tops, and even our dry, itchy vaginas and everything in between. I will help you reconnect to your feminine energy and offer real solutions from experts in their field to navigate aging as a woman. I believe we, as women, deserve to shine even brighter in this next chapter of life. So with a sense of humor and a lot of compassion, let's dive into these vulnerable conversations. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode from the Gorgeous Gray podcast. I just want to thank you, all followers, for giving me so much love on this new journey I am on, sharing these beautiful stories of women around the world with their own experience of health and going gray and, learning to be the best version of themselves. So today I have probably my favorite guest speaker on, little bias. It's my mama bear, Janice. Hi, Mom.
Hi, honey. How are you?
Good. Janice Neigum is her full name. She got remarried over 20 some years ago to her love of her life, and they're still together living it up right now in Mexico. So this episode is all going to be about hearing my mom's story of gray when she started before it was trendy and cool. So she definitely went against the norm over 20 years ago. We also going to dive into her menopause story. You think about menopause conversations just starting to happen out there in the world. And she hit menopause, around that 20 years ago. And it was very different about having conversations with women in health back then. We're going to dive into that. We're also going to talk about her health, in kind of post-menopause, what it has looked like, and her message to women when they're not feeling great and what to do about it. And then the last, as we will close off this beautiful episode, will be how she is living her best life in her 70s. So she's a prime example that midlife can be fucking awesome, ladies, if you choose it. So sorry about my language, but I'm pretty excited about this podcast. So Mama Bear, let's dive in. Gray hair journey. Let's go right there and talk about what that was like for you.
Actually, it wasn't. It was easy for me because I was tired of, because I always loved red. I had a bit of auburn in my hair growing up. And so first blonde and then auburn. And then my roots would come in like fire white. It was like Snow White. And it's like, man, within a week they were showing up. And I had gone to, I worked at a health food store, so I'd gone to the natural stuff, but still it was such a pain and a waste of my time and energy. And my husband one time, because we were biking then, and he said, honey, he said, there's one woman there that has long gray silver hair, and I think she's a fox. And I said, right on, and I'm going to be your fox. So from then on, I just let it grow. I didn't try and blend it in or anything like that. And I was good with it, Who was it one time said something to me? I can't remember now. Anyway, whatever there. Oh, I know what it was. Because I started doing purple in my hair. A good friend of mine who has all this beautiful energy did this purple in her hair. And it's all natural. It washes out, in about 3 washes. And she was just fun and her energy was great. And I thought, I'm going to do that. That's fun. So I started doing that, and I went into my friend's store, and her husband goes, why would you put your hair purple? And I said, why would that matter to you? And he didn't want to say. Obviously, I like it. Anyway, it was just a kind of a funny, I wasn't offended. It was like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
And the thing about having purple in your hair, I've had the best conversations of my life at airports, malls. The young people would stop me. Or when I first came to Mexico, because this was pretty out there in Mexico, because they're all really dark black hair, and the little kids would be following me as I'm going down the street. And just, young people would say, gee, I love your purple. I really admire you. So it was a real conversation starter. So, they would say something and then I get in a conversation. Where are you going? And, what's your passion in life? And just, it feels so good when you find those people that are not afraid to say, hey, I like that, or that's great, or whatever. So anyway, that's my gray story. I love my gray. I embrace it. I'm letting my hair grow long. And, it's at different stages. And my one friend is like, oh, I love your hair. It's so nice. And some days I love it. And some days it goes in a ponytail at the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to have the freedom to be who you want to be with no apologies.
I
That's
love
who I
that.
am. Yeah.
And yeah, so if you go into my YouTube channel, you're actually going to be able to see my mom, obviously, with the video that we're doing. If you're listening to podcast only, but right now I'm looking at my beautiful mom, and one thing about her energy is she's always got this fun purple in her hair. She's always wearing these colorful earrings. I always say like my mom's a hippie, but free. Like when I think of my mom is like this free bird and going out there to the world and meeting lots of friends, and she's a connector. And you're just such an amazing example of being able to go into midlife and embrace it. And it hasn't been easy. I know that you have had your ups and downs. And like, listen, ladies, one thing that I love about my mom is she's a fighter. So even though she has seen very dark moments where maybe she, didn't want to be around because she didn't, find her value or her worth, but today she is fighting for it, and she has fought very hard to be the woman that she is. And it gives me my own inspiration to say, I will fight to the end to find that beautiful goddess within, to be a role model. And as Mom and I have talked in depth about breaking generational patterns that show up for all of us, whether you want to deny that or it's there. And it can be really long and really deep. And so I love the work that my mom has been doing, is she's been helping our family cut, generational patterns. And then I come and, it's like a baton. You're like, oh man, you gave me so much junk and shit here. And now I got to deal with it, right? But I guess I'm going to say the load is getting lighter. For all your work. So let's dive in a little bit about menopause, because you had hit menopause, and I still remember I probably would have been, because my mom and I are about 18 years apart. When we get together, it's like, oh, is this your sister? Not daughter, because yes, it's fun. I always give her that. But I remember, Mom, when you were going through either the heavy periods and you were bleeding a lot. And I remember like you would be like, get me a pad, or that you would faint, or, and then you had this huge fibroid. I still remember that conversation. And let's start there. So in your journey of menopause and what that looked like for you.
Well, when I started going through menopause, you're right, leading up to it, huge clots, huge clotting. It's like, holy man, am I going to die here?
Yeah.
And breast tenderness. Like I had fibrocystic breasts, and what I realized, it was from the pill, the birth control pill, caused that. And when we moved to Edmonton, I went and saw a doctor, and he recommended an ablation. So I'm like, yeah, that's going to help. So what it is they cauterize your womb.
Yeah.
And so I had that done. The very next period didn't make a damn bit of difference. And I was pissed off. Anyway, and then I would go to a breast clinic, and they would use a needle and drain all these lumps. Next period, they're all back, right? Because if you're not resolving the problem, you're just trying to control symptoms.
Right.
And I remember times I couldn't hardly hug my children because it hurt so bad. So anyway, and then I had ended up with this fibroid in my uterus the size of a grapefruit. And so I went to a doctor and he gave me 5 choices. 4 of them were drugs. And I'm like, look them up. No, he said, or do nothing. And once you hit menopause, it will go away. And I said, thank you, I'll do nothing. And so, and it just, for me, it was stopped immediately. I didn't have spotting or anything. It was just came to an end, done. And so I'm like, yes. But then you don't realize when you're not getting any estrogen, it has its whole other complications.
Yeah.
And in my, I think it was in my 30s, I had gone to I think a cardiologist back then when we lived in Medicine Hat, and I had a small hole in my heart. And he said, but it's so small, he said, you'll die of old age before that. So that was a relief. But I did end up with Hashimoto's. And so I dug deep at that time and I used different supplements and I got rid of it or managed it. I guess you never get rid. Well, autoimmune, it depends with what you're going through in your life emotionally, your food, your exercise, all of that contributes, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it reared its ugly head again. I had been having atrial fibrillation. It started in about 2018, and I was in a dark place again in my life, and just all the stuff that I haven't resolved, and I worked down hard. I remember in my 50s going to a retreat, and it was a week long, and let me tell you, in group settings, everything comes up, and you know, we had to have a funeral for our parents and for yourself, and like deep work. And so I'm like, oh, you know, I'm all better. I'll be better forever, because I just thought once you pulled off a layer and dug into your crap or your pain, your trauma, it was done. That was the illusion I had. That was the naivety I had. And so when I found myself in a dark place again, it's like, how can this be? I've already done, and leading up to that, many courses, and you know, course after course. And I took Kundalini, and I love that. We took a week-long course with a book this thick, but at the end of the day, it was the ego was hanging on, because the ego doesn't want you. The ego wants to keep you feeling safe.
Yeah.
And they didn't know that. And I mean, I saw it in you all the time. I knew you were living your passion, and you weren't afraid to say whatever happened in your life. And I was carrying so much shame from my parents. And, you know, once you understand, you know, my parents went through the war. My mom moved from England onto the prairies, no support. And, you know, had a couple miscarriages. My oldest brother died when he was away in South Africa, you know, and my mom, she had a very soft heart, and she didn't know how to heal herself. And same with my dad, because my dad was alcoholic, functioning one. And my dad and I were close because we played a lot of sports together. That's how I guess I managed life, you know, my life by being really busy in sports. And so, you know, when you understand what your parents go through, you become compassionate. And, you know, I did some beautiful meditations, and I had a dream one night where, because I lost my sister and my brother during COVID, and my sister died of colon cancer. And they say colon cancer is not releasing your crap in life. And that was my sister. She hung on to everything. And then my brother, he had bladder cancer, and that's associated with being pissed off. And so when you realize how much your emotions play into all of life, that's the secret. And so
I remember, Mom, you introduced me to this, and I wrote about it in my book about, you know, me being in my 30s, and you had all this awareness back then, and I wasn't really spiritual back then. I kind of left the church, and I remember you saying, you should get the book Louise Hayes, because, you know, I would say something about like, you know, oh, I've got like a sore in my mouth. My mom would be like, hey, just wait a minute. And then she would like look it up, and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to hear it. Like, how many of us don't want to hear like potentially the truth, right? The truth of the emotion behind the pain. And there were times where I didn't want to listen to you, Mom. I was like, I'm not ready for the information. And I think women, that's a huge thing. Like, you've got people out there to help and to support you, but are you ready for the truth? And so I think at times you were ready for the truth and you weren't ready for the truth, right? But you're in a season where the truth is just unfolding, and you're, every day brighter and leaning into the truth and being okay with the truth, even though it's scary or you're afraid of it. And I guess that's the message that I want for women when they're listening, is like, if you're on this journey of like, I want my life to be better in midlife, if you haven't done your emotional work, if you want to have a great life, you can't hide from it anymore, because it will catch up to you. That's, I think, my message. And just explain to the ladies that are listening about some of your different healing modalities that you have been working on kind of the last four years, like the different paths that you've been taking, even the emotional healing. What does that look like for you? To give women an idea, like here you are at 70, you're feeling hopeful for the future, you're excited, you still have your vitality, your energy, your joy, people are drawn to you. People are like, I want that. How do you get that? How do you get that mojo in your 70s?
Well, it started back with Louise, hey, you can heal your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, healing through that. And I took a course with a doctor that had left his career because he didn't like the way it was going. And so he taught me a lot about kinesiology and body structure and, mind body connection for sure. I'm just trying to think of all the different courses I've taken, the one through Kundalini about our energy rising. I love Kundalini yoga because it's really spiritually based and learning about chanting. Jim and I went and did 2 ayahuasca ceremonies, and we were living in Ecuador. We went there for 5 years, and we went away one weekend and into this, it's called Smy Ocean View Lodge. We went there for Valentine's Day, had a massage, and you're up in this mountain and this beautiful energy, and the couple are just still our dear friends to this day. We actually own land there still because we were going to build a home that overlooked the ocean, and who knows, maybe we'll still do it. You're never too old, right? Pass it on to you guys. Another beautiful place in the world to live. But anyway, I saw this book and I said, oh, what's ayahuasca? I was very naive, never heard of it. When I grew up, I ran from drugs. Some of my friends were smoking it or mushrooms, and that just was never an interest of mine. I already knew my mind wasn't the best, so I didn't need to upset it. So anyway, learned about it. My friend who's a yoga instructor, her and I put together a retreat, and there were 10 of us from across Canada. And so it was powerful, and totally a good experience. And you have to be with experienced people that know how to help those that may be going into trauma or whatever through their journey. But, it was wonderful. And then again, when we were in Costa Rica, we had bought a place there up in the mountain. My husband always had this desire to work with the land because he grew up on a farm. And so we did it with a guy named Gerald Paul. And he was a complete addict. He was a very wealthy, not a nice man. And ayahuasca completely changed his life. And he opened the first medical ayahuasca resort in the world, and famous people from all over the world go there. In fact, my husband got to have his bed right beside the top surfer in the world. Didn't know who he was from Adam. People would be like, do you know who you were sleeping by? No. So just people are really real. People are there to do their work. I met people that were in so much pain. One girl, her sister was murdered, and so she was there because her parents sent her there because they knew she needed the deep work because she lost her hope in life. So, it's not for everybody. And then, it was for us. So we're done with that, but it was a great experience. And
they all chalk it up to experience, right? Like, honestly, it's what I can remember growing up is just when you and Jim got together, this 25+ year adventure of going to Hawaii and doing spas and retreats and floats and
Mm.
half naked circle stuff and stories. And oh my gosh, like just almost, I'm like, these are like little kids, these are my parents, but they act like kids. And I recently, and maybe it was the Power of the Heart documentary I just watched, is like, imagine going out to the world and being childlike,
Mm.
not childish, but childlike. And the childlike is the wonder of a child. And that is what I have seen in you and Jim. And that's the gift that you've given us, is that you go out to the world and wonder, wonder. And, you know, sometimes for you guys, it's a shit show. And the stories that you have, I'm like, what were they thinking? But does it ever make for a really great story? And usually we're like laughing and there's tears. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, because it's like such an adventure and then beyond. So I guess I just want to say, like, it's really cool to hear some of this stuff. And maybe the last thing I want you to share on your health, and then we'll move into the last part, but is I remember when you went down to Mexico during COVID and you invested in your health so that you could make sure that you were the strongest version of yourself, knowing that what was happening around the world. How much did you invest at that healing center, and how did that help you take your health to the next level? So, women, sometimes we need to invest, and my mom decided it was time to really invest in your health. So, what did you do at that center?
Well, I knew first of all, I had the complete hormone panel done, and that's when they picked up on my Hashimoto's again. So, spent 32,000 US. And so I did a lot of IVs, which was probably the best thing. My vitamin D was so low, they were giving me shots of 60,000
Wow.
IUs just to get it, maybe kick-started.
Yeah.
And so a lot of IVs with a lot of
Yeah.
nutrients in it,
Yeah.
right? I tried, what's that when you clean
You
your
do.
bowels out?
Oh, colonics.
Colonics. And
Colonics. Yeah.
it was not for me, because when you're in a healing crisis, that's the
Right.
last thing you need. So
Yeah.
stop that. And a lot of different supplements they recommended. And I was already eating clean. It's easy to do here. I just made this morning your favorite celery, apple, and ginger this
Nice.
morning for my guests.
Yeah.
And so was doing a lot of really good foods.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up getting COVID, and thank God that I went there, because I don't think I would have made it, because I was already compromised. My immune system was not strong because of Hashimoto's. And so I ended up going into the hospital for 24 hours because I went into AFib, and it was after 48 hours, it still wasn't reset.
Yeah.
And so that was a whole journey, and 3 hours it was reset, because I love the way they use an IV and it puts your heart rate back.
Yeah.
So anyway, going to that health spa to me saved my life, and it put me back on the right track again.
Right.
So when I was back in Canada again, I went to a naturopath. She has me on support. And since then, I've been looking at, I don't know if anybody follows Dr. Darrell Wolf, you really need to, and I'm going to take his course. He is so brilliant, and he's bringing light to our emotions and all the things you can do. I'm following the paleo cardiologist, who was for 30 years cutting and prescribing. Met a chiropractor. He's one of the top of 50 in the world that use all naturals. So I'm seeking out, because I do want to get off my medication, because I don't believe in it. My cardiologist in Medicine Hat wanted me to go on some really strong drugs, and I just like, nope, nope, nope. And so you have to take your health into your own hands. And I do a lot of breath work. So in learning the breath work, I've been able to shorten my episodes. And when I was here, came back here, I hadn't had an episode in a while. And then I had it 4 days in a row because I wasn't listening to my body. Too much technology, not enough resting, remodeling. And so it was like, you have to listen to your body. You can't outrun your emotions. And then recently, I went to Dr. Rose here. She's been working for 30 years with people's emotions. And holy, she nailed it for both Jim and I. It was the most beautiful sessions. We've
Yeah.
had an hour each. And yeah, just clearing more of the stuff that's
Yeah.
holding me back and clearing the way for you children and my grandchildren. I don't want them carrying 1,000 generations that goes into your cellular memory,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited every day. I'm using up my board and just talk past my mind. I love boogie boarding. Oh my goodness, that's the best rush, and I just can't stop laughing. So
Yeah.
every day say yes to life. That's what
Yeah.
I do. And all the right people show up. And when you're in the sun and the ocean and you're meeting new friends every day, what's not to love about life? And so together we get to do that when you're here.
Yeah, so good. So you can kind of hear the excitement in her voice, right? She shared her gray hair story, a little bit about her health, her journey, and she never gave up on herself. And I think that's the message for women. If you're listening to this podcast and, you're in a funk, you're in a stage, you're in a season where you're like, you've lost hope. I want my mom's story to give you that spark to say, you know what? Like if this woman, Janice, 70 years old, who saw darkness, who had tough days and seasons, was able, oh, and there's 1111, that's beautiful, to be able to still show up for herself. And, I would say like, write down the why. Like, why do you want to show up for the best version of yourself? Who is watching you? Are your kids watching you? Of course they are. Is your husband watching you or your partner? Of course they are, right? It's do it for yourself. Do it always for yourself first, right? And then when you find that reason, then you one foot in front of the other. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's baby steps, right? And we're always rerouting, right? Oh, this isn't working for me anymore. Or, oh, I need to probably be eating like this now. Or maybe I don't need as many calories as I used to. That's one thing that I'm learning in menopause, right? What used to work in my 20s, 30s, and 40s are not working in my 50s. I had to kind of like reevaluate and have a conversation with myself that this is okay. Like you don't need as much food as you can't eat like your 20-year-old daughter, even though you want to eat that bag of chips with her and go, that's not fair. How can she get away with it? Well, I used to be able to get away with that stuff, right? And eat the addicting processed foods and all that stuff. So we're going to just shift as we close off this podcast about here you are at 70. So my mom and I work in the same business together. We work for a company called Juice Plus. It is a direct selling company. They've been around for over 50 years. My mom introduced me to Juice Plus, 17, just over 17 years ago. I kicked and screamed, Mom, I don't need this stuff. Leave me alone. Stop bugging me, blah, blah, blah. But one day she just called me at the right time. And I'm like, okay, there's research behind it. Check. It's fruits, veg, and berries in a powder. Okay, check. It's non-GMO. Check. So anyways, I just went through the checklist as a nutritionist and I said, okay, I'll try it. Behind her back, I got my blood work done, my kids' blood work done. They were 2 and 3 because there was something inside me to say, I don't think it's going to work. I'm going to prove her wrong. She'll probably feel bad and guilty. I'll make her feel bad and guilty that I spent this money. She'll give me my money back and, I won't be out of pocket. But 4 months later goes by. I get my blood work done again by my best friend. And she looked at me and she goes, oh my gosh, Nicole, this stuff actually works. I'm like, no, don't tell me that. I'm going to have to tell my mom she was right. And that's kind of our story into this beautiful business model. It impacted my health. I was getting my mojo back. I had a daughter who had a compromised immune system, a ton of food allergies. We were starting to see her markers improve until after about a year, we got rid of her team and we didn't need the whole allergy team because she got signed off that she was not immune compromised anymore and she didn't have her food allergies. So, and really the only thing we did was we started on the journey of adding more plants to our diet. And so here we are today. 17 years later, we signed on the same day. We are the top team in Canada, which is pretty awesome and incredible. And I thank you, Mom, for being brave enough to share it with me because I know I was a hard ass. But it's allowed you and Jim to be able to play in the world and to have this flexibility. And, I remember seeing you in your 50s, take off and go a month here and a month there and live in Ecuador for 5 years, and then you finally just landed in Mexico a few years ago, and you bought your dream home. It's gorgeous, and it's a place where people can come and love and connect. And we've got your revolving door of guests and friends and family, and I'm so grateful for that. And so the story that I want to share is that you're never too old to go after your dreams. You're never too old to create something magical. And what's really neat about the business that we're in is you can be 18 years old, or you can be as old as Hazel, who's in her 90s, still doing this business with love and inspiration and helping people. And I love that age range. It's like you can be of service to other people at any stage. And I love this business model because you can really build up this business model with a product that you love, that know that it can serve many. And that's what you and I have done. So you're in Mexico right now. You've been building your business down there. And I love that you get to do it part-time and then play, full-time in the land of Mexico. And then for myself, when I went down in January and spent 6 weeks with my mom and Jim, I'm like, I want to be here. I don't want to be in the Canadian cold winters anymore. So it was like one of those moments where looking at my mom going, I could buy a condo here. And my mom's like, yeah, you can. I'm like, well, let's go look. And so our condo closes in January, and I'm going to be about a 10-minute drive or an hour beach walk from my mama bear. And I'm so friggin' excited, you guys, that when you say what happens when you hit midlife and you can do two paths. Well, I'm on the childlike path. I'm like, give me more of these childlike experiences and wonder and new friends and new places and sun and fun. I'm still going down to work, but I'm going to work part-time and serve many and then play full-time. So Mom, let's talk, as we close this off, a little bit about that excitement. You're down there, you're in your joy factor. What is that like as a 70-year-old woman that is like, I'm just getting started?
When we went to Destoladera Beach, and I went on the boogie board, and literally I can't stop laughing. It just takes me back to when I was a child, and I was always loved nature, and always I had this, I don't know, knowing inside that life is amazing. And I, of course, lost it in and out of depression until I resolved it. But anyway, every day I get up with gratitude and yes, and my business is growing. And if it were not for this business, Jim and I couldn't have been here. Yes, he made good money. We made some bad investments with people that weren't trustworthy. And, my husband worked hard to pay off all those kind of debts that accumulated from that investment. And after, when he retired, he had a good pension, and then it gets cut in half in 5 years. And we had always said, well, this business will, help us out. But this business has given us the opportunity to buy this house. And I always imagined having a home full of people and guests and just full of love and laughter and good food. And so that's what we really built. And I'm going for NMD in the new year. I want to go to that 39 club with my daughter and take my husband. And so I never stop thinking about next steps. And my husband is passionate about the Tower Garden, and we gave one to the Refuge of Hope, and they're thrilled. And so Jim will look after that. We have one on our deck, one in the kitchen, and we have another one to put on our other deck. So with fingers crossed, the Tower Gardens are supposed to land here in sometime in the spring, and people are lining up already. Jim's been posting, and they're like, can we get them here? We had to drive ours down. But so, you have inspired me my whole life. You were always an incredible daughter. Yeah, you had your moments, but we had very few really when I think about it. And all my children are beautiful, and I'm grateful for each one, and our grandchildren. And so your passion, when I was not in that passion, fueled my passion to believe that someday I can get there. And we never arrive, and we're always dreaming. And so I'm working on my dream board again. And I think of all the places in the world I've been, and we've got more. We were either going to go to Greece or Italy this summer, right?
Yep.
You and Tracy and I. And in my whole lifetime, I could have never believed that was possible.
Yeah.
But now everything's possible, right? The only thing that holds us back is our mind, our unbelief. And I just say, hey, life, where am I going next? And I have my, my goals and my dreams, and stay open. So thank you. Thank you for leading me when I needed to be led. Yeah.
What a great podcast, Mom. I'm excited to share this with the world and share a little bit about story. I probably have to get you on here so we can talk a little bit more about some of the other hot topics that we didn't even get into. But I hope you really enjoyed this podcast, to hear my mom's heart, to hear my heart, to know that, we all see darkness. It is part of the growth. We all carry generational patterns. And it's about what work can you do in this lifetime so that you can, I'm going to say, pass less of a burden on to the next generation so that they can rise and be stronger and get rid of all of the shitty, itty stories that show up and hold us back. Because it's people like my mom that will make, the difference in her community and in her family, and that can be you too. It's just a choice. So thank you for tuning in to this amazing episode, and thank you, Mom, for tuning in from Mexico. And it is 34 days and counting. I will be on an airplane and saying goodbye to the Canadian winter and having Sunday dinners and morning walks with my mama bear. Thank you. I love you.
Hats? You know that? They're waiting for you.
Awesome. What's we say? What's the goodbye in
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. Thank you. I was another language was already popping in my head. Got confusion between French and Spanish. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. I want to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If this message landed for you, make sure to leave a review and tag me, Nicole Scott, at Gorgeous Grey Movement, and make sure to share with your friends. You can head over to my free Facebook community, Gorgeous Grey Movement, or subscribe to my YouTube channel for more inspiring interviews. If you are still struggling and need additional support, you can take a look at my website, nicolescott.ca, and learn more about my new Menopause Reset program that I'm so excited for. Until next time, ladies, be well and own your sparkle.